Hey, I'm Tim Pierce. I'm here in my home studio today for Royer, and we're going to go through a bunch of guitar sounds. I'm going to show you how I shape sounds with my Royer R-122V. I also sneak in a 57 because we've listened to 57s for our whole lives, so it's nice to have that mid-range fist from that microphone. But the Royer R-122V is always printed on my guitar tones, and it's really wide and rich, and it makes distortion kind of sweet, I believe. I've been a session player for, I think, 35 years, and I still do sessions most every day. But I try and limit the hours because my real love is my website, my teaching website, and I try and make content for that constantly. But today we're going to go through sounds, like I said, and I'm going to try and show you, in the context of what I do for a living, how I use these microphones and use them in a very practical way. So the way my system works, I have all the heads up here, and then the speakers are downstairs. Generally, I play through 1-4-12, and I have mics all over it. Today, I'm just going to be using the Royer R-122V and the 57, and then the microphones come back up here, straight into mic pre's. I really love these BAE Neve clone mic pre's, but the Royer is going through a Skibbe mic pre. That's S-K-I-B-B-E, so just Google that and you'll see what it is. I just found it really works well with this thing, and Ross Hogarth got me into the Skibbe, and I really, really love it. So you're going to hear the two mics blended, and sometimes I put a little delay through an Eventide Eclipse. Sometimes I turn on the distressor, but the basic signal chain is guitar into amp head, into the 412, into the microphones, into mic pre's, straight to Pro Tools through the apogee. Now on the way there, I do have an Eventide Eclipse and a distressor, so there's not that much going on. The rest of the effects come from pedals and sometimes plugins in Pro Tools. So I put up a song. I have lots of songs on hard drives, and I put up a song that I'm going to overdub on so I can kind of show you guys what I do for people, and it's a very simple thing, but it depends on getting good sounds primarily. And so what I'm going to start with is I'm going to shape a sound with the Royer only. And most of the sounds that I get are half distorted, or you might say a combination between clean and dirty. I try and find that sweet spot where it seems like a clean sound, but it's dirty enough to have sustain, and it compresses down a little bit so that it sounds warm. A totally clean sound can be too transient, so it's kind of an illusion. All my sounds have dirt in them, but I try and make them read as clean. This first sound is a clean arpeggiated sound. There is dirt in it. The Royer has a lot of fidelity, so I'm going to, the tone controls on the amp actually seem more alive with the Royer because they seem to do more. And so here's the first sound. Okay, that's showing up a little bright and thin, so I'm going to turn up the bass. See how much bass I get just with a little turn of the knob? I'm going to back down the treble a little bit. And then I'm just going to turn it down a little bit so it's not quite as distorted. And that seems good to me. I'm not really missing anything, but I will dial in the 57 now. And it's as if I added a nose to it, a little bit of nose. Let me take the 57 out. I am not just saying this, but I like the Royer by itself for this particular sound. So that's the kind of part that I typically play, and it's pretty sweet. Put a little bit of Echo Boy and Pro Tools on it, so that can be adjusted later. The R-122V really worked perfectly by itself for that part. Okay, so now I'm going to try coming from the other direction. I'm going to open with a sound that's all SM57. I'm going to bleed in the Royer to make it sound better. For this, I have this ASAT with the Leo Fender Design pickups and bridge, same amplifier. And I've got the 57 on. And this is a very simple part. It's just going to be chords that are spread, which is actually a very important thing when recording, is to be able to do a nice... So there it is with the 57. Okay, now I'm going to dial in the Royer. I mean, it went this way, but it also seemed to get more in your face, which I didn't expect. And funnily enough, it seemed like the Royer added mids this time. So it's all language. So that's a nice combination where I have the 57 and then the Royer bringing in all this fullness around it. So I'm going to see if this simple chord stroke will work with the other part that I did. Let's give it a try. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to try some lead lines. Why not? Nobody's stopping me. So I picked up my Duesenberg, which I love, and I cranked up my micro amp so it's more distortion, natural distortion, on the, more gain I would say, on the amp, pushing into the input of the amp. And then this really great new MXR reverb pedal. So I end up with this sound. Now I have the 57 and the Royer at about even. Let's pull out the 57. Now part of it's just gain, but I am missing the 57. Let's bring it back. Let's pull out the Royer. Nice, but a little too thin. So I think for this I'll keep what I had, which is the 57 and the Royer at about even. Now let me give you an example. So I'll give it a try in the track. So now over the same track, I'm going to try a totally clean, for lack of a better word, R&B part, you know. Maybe it's not totally clean, but it's pretty clean. Yeah, it's pretty clean. And I'm going to shape the tone just with the Royer. Let's see what I get. You see how bright it can get? Because it's like the knobs go from like 0 to 20 with the Royer up. I really mean that too. So I dial it back to about 7. It seems right. Now the bass is off. I can bring the bass up to about 2. That's plenty of bass, very full. And it is a bit dirty. Like I said, I always try and get away with a clean sound that actually has dirt in it, because then you get the sustain and the natural compression of the amp in its sweet spot. Now I'll blend in the 57 and see if we even need it. '57 adds. It could just be adding gain. I go through that a lot. If you add something and it gets louder, you're going to like it automatically. But adding in a little 57 here is certainly not hurting it. Sounds good. So the kind of part this is, I'm broadly striking the strings here and doing lots of muting with my fingers over here so that I can get a single note as I'm hitting kind of the whole guitar. For this, I'm using a Garage that I've owned for a long time. Don Garage makes really amazing guitars, and honestly, I was drawn to this one when I first got it by the weight. It's very light, and the beauty of the finish and the pickguard. It's a great guitar. It's really springy and kind of plays itself. And so I'm using it for this kind of clean R&B sound.